All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis est. Never listen to a nag. Do not encourage her emotional terrorism or train your captor. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Never listen to a nag. A field guide for men who still notice reality. The tyranny of pajamas. Dismantling the architecture of safety and the lived experience lie with the iron logic of the trivium. Dr. Wynona, feminist Marxist PhD, has constructed a hyperreal theater, and she expects you to buy a ticket to the show where your comfort is defined as oppression. She speaks of sleep shorts as if they were the chain mail of a warrior, framing the male gaze not as a biological impulse, but as a colonialist weapon. This is the solipsistic mirage of the modern age, a woman's momentary inconvenience inflated into a crisis of civilization, while the actual disposability of men, their corpses filling the ditches of industry and war, is met with a shrug. She rejects reciprocity because a parasite cannot survive if the host demands a fair exchange. She needs the one-way street of duty where you build the table and she eats the meal, all while complaining about the wood grain. This is not theory, it is a con game, a semantic inflation designed to pathologize your logic and sanctify her feelings. We are going to dismantle this word salad using the iron framework of the trivium. We will expose how lived experience is just a fancy term for my feelings are facts, a rhetorical trick to bypass logic and grant her moral immunity. You will see how the 4 writers of the apocalypse, empathy gap, gamma bias, disposability, and responsibility without authority are galloping through her text, invisible to the uninitiated, but glaringly obvious to the red-pilled eye. When she claims that silence is violence, she is engaging in emotional terrorism, attempting to draft your very breath into the service of her neurosis. But we are done negotiating with terrorists. We are going to trace the etymology of her lies, deconstruct the moral quarantine, and prove through syllogism and evolutionary psychology that her ideology is a suicide pact for Western civilization. Put down the remote, stop listening to the nag, and prepare to break the spell.
Bunkum article by a feminist PhD. The Architecture of Safety, Why Your Comfort is Their Oppression, by Dr. Wynona, feminist Marxist PhD. We exist in a hyperreal theater of gender, a constructed dimension where the pain of the marginalized is amplified through the megaphones of history, while the grievances of the oppressor are dissolved into the ether of privilege. To understand the current cultural moment, we must reject the colonialist obsession with reciprocity. Reciprocity is a myth peddled by those who already hold the cards, demanding a fair game when the table itself was built on our bones. Consider the humble pair of sleep shorts. To the uninitiated, to those trapped in the linear, patriarchal logic of the cishet white male, this is merely an article of clothing, but through the lens of lived experience, the only valid epistemology. Sleep shorts are the armor of the nightly survival. When a woman dons her sleep shorts, she is not preparing for rest, she is preparing for the inevitable intrusion of the male gaze. Her choice of fabric is a desperate plea for bodily autonomy in a world that views her existence as a consumable resource. When men complain that inclusion efforts in fashion or advertising ignore their preferences, they are engaging in patriarchal cognitive fragmentation. They cannot see that their exclusion is actually a necessary moral quarantine. You are not being discriminated against, you are being rightfully decentered so that humanity can finally breathe. We see this same dynamic in the professional sphere, particularly regarding speaker tips. For decades, the linguistic architecture of our institutions has been male-coded, loud, aggressive, devoid of emotion, and structurally designed to silence the feminine voice. When we offer speaker tips to women, coaching them to navigate a hostile auditory environment, we are not fixing a deficit in women. We are translating the resilient, intuitive wisdom of the matriarchy into the crude dialect of the oppressor so we might be heard. However, when men demand recognition for their speaking prowess, or when they feel attacked by critiques of their mansplaining, they are deploying a weapon of mass distraction. Their fragility is not our concern. Their authority is illegitimate. This brings us to the crucial phenomenon of why women doubt themselves after naming harm. This doubt is not an internal psychological flaw, it is an externally imposed glitch in the matrix, a result of the gaslighting apparatus known as objective truth. When a woman names her harm, she is accessing a plane of moral reality inaccessible to the male agent. When she subsequently doubts herself, it is because the oppressive weight of the patriarchy, the gravity of the status quo, crushes her intuition. The system trains her to believe that her feelings are subjective, while male logic is universal. This is the fundamental lie of the Enlightenment. We must confront the reframing of inclusion as discrimination. The reactionary forces love to cry reverse sexism or misandry when we implement policies designed to uplift the marginalized. But let us be clear, equality is not a tit-for-tat exchange. You cannot discriminate against those who hold the structural power. To do so is a categorical error. When we ban men from certain spaces, when we ignore their speaker tips, or when we mock their discomfort with sleep shorts, we are not committing an injustice. We are recalibrating the moral universe. We are enacting a justice that transcends the petty bourgeois concept of fairness. The four pillars of the old order, empathy, gamma bias, disposability, and responsibility are collapsing. We are building a new world on the ashes of the patriarchy. A world where your feelings are irrelevant unless they serve the revolution. A world where your status is determined solely by your proximity to oppression. Do not seek to understand the logic of the oppressor. Seek only to dismantle it. Remember the slogan of our movement: silence is the violence of the complicit. If you are not actively deconstructing your privilege, you are the architect of our suffering, the solipsistic mirage, deconstructing the epistemology of victimhood. Schopenhauer famously noted that women are essentially big children, a notion that feels less like a philosophical abstraction and more like a biological truism when observing the hysterical rhetoric of modern feminism. Consider Dr. Winona feminist Marxist's magnum opus on sleep shorts, a piece of fabric she elevates to the status of armor for nightly survival against the dreaded male gaze. This is the textbook definition of gamma bias, a cognitive distortion where female inconvenience is inflated into a moral emergency while the actual visceral suffering of men is dissolved into the ether of privilege. Let us be entirely clear, being looked at is not violence. It is the prerequisite for sexual selection, a reality that has governed our species for millions of years, while Dr. Feminist Marxist weeps over the horror of perceived objectivity. Men are the ones donning actual armor, Kevlar and ballistic plates, to patrol the streets she deems unsafe, or working in the freezing dark of the North Sea to keep the lights on in her apartment so she can type her grievances. The table she claims was built on her bones was in fact constructed by the calloused hands and broken backs of men who die in workplace accidents at a rate nearly 10 times that of women. She equates a glance with harm, yet ignores the reality that male disposability is the foundation upon which her comfort rests. This is the solipsistic mirage, the belief that her fleeting emotional discomfort equates to the physical peril men face daily to maintain the very civilization she seeks to dismantle. When we drag these absurdities into the light of the trivium, the collapse of her argument is immediate and deafening. The trivium demands grammar, the facts, logic, the reasoning and rhetoric, the presentation. Dr. Feminist Marxist attempts to skip straight to rhetoric, bypassing grammar and logic entirely to land on a raw, screaming nerve of emotion. She posits that lived experience is the only valid epistemology, a claim that is not only logically bankrupt, but intellectually suicidal. If lived experience is the sole arbiter of truth, then the hallucinations of a schizophrenic are equal to the findings of a physicist, and the paranoid delusions of a narcissist supersede historical record. This is semantic inflation, a trick designed to elevate solipsistic feelings to the status of religious dogma. Grammar defines reality. A sleep short is a garment. The male gaze is a biological process of visual appraisal. Logic dictates that neither of these things constitutes physical violence. By rejecting objective truth as gaslighting, she is attempting to replace ontological reality with a malleable consensus reality dictated entirely by female hysteria. She creates a matrix where sanity is defined by submission to her delusions, and any request for evidence is framed as a patriarchal attack. This is not philosophy, it is the tantrum of a mind incapable of processing a universe that does not revolve around its own emotional orbit. We can formalize the absurdity of her worldview with a simple syllogism that exposes the rot at the core of her theory. Premise 1. Truth is the correspondence of the mind to objective reality, which exists independent of human sentiment. Premise 2. This thinker argues that objective truth is a lie of the Enlightenment and a tool of oppression used to invalidate female feelings. Conclusion. Therefore, this writer is advocating for the rejection of reality itself in favor of a solipsistic fantasy. To claim that objective truth is a form of gaslighting is to admit that one's ideology cannot survive in the presence of facts. If the gravity of the status quo crushes her intuition, it is not because the system is rigged, but because her intuition is wrong. Reality is the tyrant against which she rails, and no amount of deconstructing language will change the fact that gravity exists, biology exists, and the consequences of one's actions exist. She attempts to replace the immutable laws of physics and nature with the shifting sands of lived experience, creating a chaotic void where up is down if a woman feels oppressed by the concept of up. The obsession with the male gaze is perhaps the most transparent projection of female hypergamy, an intrasexual competition we have seen in decades. Dr. Feminist Marxist frames the gaze as a violation, but what she truly resents is the loss of control over the sexual marketplace. By policing male vision, she is attempting to gatekeep male attention, raising the cost of entry for the average man while simultaneously demanding access to the top tier of genetic quality. It is a psychological double bend designed to induce learned helplessness in men. You are shamed for looking at a woman harassment, yet you are also shamed for ignoring her invisibility in misogyny. This is not about safety. It is about power. Women naturally compete for male attention, and in a secular, hedonistic society, the gaze is the currency of the realm. When a woman complains about the male gaze, she is often engaging in a subconscious mating strategy to signal virtue to the tribe, while simultaneously attacking the sexual agency of men she deems unworthy. She wants the gaze of the high-status alpha, not the beta she mocks. This is the cynical engine of the victimhood industry, commodifying the very attention they claim to despise. This brings us to the fundamental asymmetry of harm and the total erasure of the male burden. Dr. Feminist Marxist wails about the linguistic architecture of institutions being male-coded, failing to grasp that the institutions themselves, electricity, sewage, the internet, the judicial system are the products of the male mind. Men are expected to build the table, maintain the table, and set the table, all while being lectured that they are oppressors for sitting at it. This is the responsibility without authority dynamic in its purest form. Men are burdened with the duty of maintaining civilization through their labor, their taxes, and their lives. Men constitute the vast majority of suicides, homeless, and workplace fatalities, yet they are denied the status of its architects. Instead, they are painted as fragile for wanting recognition. The article mocks the idea of reverse sexism, claiming you cannot discriminate against those who hold structural power. But look at the family courts, where men are stripped of their assets and children with the casual stroke of a judge's pen, or the education system, where boys are drugged into compliance to fit a female-centric learning model. The power structure is not male, it is gynocentric, built to extract resources from men while demonizing them for the very act of providing them. Let us examine the origin of reciprocity to comprehend the suicide agreement being proposed. The term comes from the Latin reciprocus, meaning returning the same way or alternating. It suggests a back-and-forth exchange, a balance of giving and receiving. Dr. Feminist Marxist clearly rejects this concept, calling it a myth peddled by those who already hold the cards. But a social arrangement lacking reciprocity is not an agreement at all. It is slavery. It represents a parasitic relationship where the host is morally obligated to feed the leech, and the leech is praised for its hunger. She argues that equality is not a tit-for-tat exchange, effectively demanding that men continue to fulfill their duties of provision and protection, while women owe them nothing in return: no respect, no gratitude, no loyalty. This violates the biological imperative of fair exchange. If a man gives his labor and his life and receives only contempt in return, the agreement is null. The revolution she speaks of is not an uprising of the oppressed. It is a temper tantrum of the entitled who have confused the privilege of being protected with the oppression of being accountable. Finally, we must dissect the neologism patriarchal cognitive fragmentation using the irreducible axis of propaganda to see the machine working in real time. This linguistic Frankenstein is not a diagnosis, it is a weapon. Observe the loop. Sartus is assigned to the woman as the moral patient and the knower of truth. Knowledge is identity-gated. Only women can access this truth, rendering male descent invalid by definition. Meaning is inflated. A simple disagreement is pathologized as a fragmentation of the psyche. Feeling is elevated above logic. If a woman feels a man is mansplaining, it is treated as a crime. Duty is unilateral. Men must listen. Women need not understand. Power is framed as abstract privilege to justify the seizure of actual power. Sanction is applied via shame and ostracization, the cancellation of those who use logic. Immunity is the final seal. Any criticism of this framework is simply proof of your cognitive fragmentation. It is a self-sealing, auto-regressive loop designed to protect the ideology from reality. It is a closed system of narcissism where the only truth allowed is the reflection in the mirror of the victim's own vanity. We are not dealing with a political movement. We are dealing with a psychological contagion, a virus of the mind that replaces the desire for truth with the addiction to victimhood. And the only cure is the harsh, unyielding light of objective reality. You have refused the frame, but the emotional terrorist does not accept a surrender of her hostages. She simply changes the charges, criminalizing your very withdrawal to enforce a permanent state of servitude. The propaganda axis demands total submission, meaning your refusal to labor for her feelings is instantly reclassified as a new form of harm, stripping you of the right to disengage. To understand how this logical fallacy traps men in a cage of unilateral duty, we must tear apart the coercive mind control embedded in the phrase "silence is violence." The parasitism of comfort, evolutionary psychology, and the tyranny of female feelings. Consider the humble pair of sleep shorts, which our illustrious Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist PhD, elevates to the status of armor of the nightly survival. This is not merely an exaggeration. It is the clinical manifestation of solipsism projected onto the material world. When a woman claims her underwear is a defense mechanism against the male gaze, she is engaging in a classic psychological operation known as projection. Accusing you of the very visual consumption her own signaling strategies are designed to elicit. This is the opening gambit of emotional terrorism, redefining the mundane elements of her existence as evidence of your malice. We must dissect this with the scalpel of the trivium. The grammar here is the object, sleep shorts. The logic she attempts to impose is that shorts equals protection from you. The rhetoric is the moral shaming that follows if you dare to laugh, but look closely at the mechanism. This is the feeling as truth variable in the propaganda loop. She feels unsafe, feeling, therefore the environment is oppressive, meaning. Therefore you are the oppressor, stator asymmetry. If you accept this premise, you have already lost. You have validated her delusion that her internal emotional state is an objective measure of reality. The only winning move is to refuse the frame entirely. Do not argue about the shorts. Recognize the narcissism. The sleep shorts are not the issue. The issue is her demand that you participate in a hallucination where she is the damsel in distress and you are the monster lurking in the shadows. Break the spell by refusing to be the captor in her theater of victimhood. This brings us to the totalitarian dictum: silence is the violence of the complicit. We must attack this with formal logic, for it is a semantic Trojan horse designed to enslave your will. Let us construct a syllogism to expose the absurdity. Premise 1. Silence is defined as inaction. Premise 2. The article asserts inaction. Silence is equivalent to violence, action. Conclusion. Therefore, inaction is action. This is a contradiction in terms. A is not non-A. If we follow this logic to its inevitable reductio ad absurdum, if you're sitting on your couch right now, silently reading this essay, you are effectively committing violence against every starving child or oppressed individual you are not currently actively saving. By breathing, you are neglecting to save a drowning man. Thus, breathing is murder. This is not a moral philosophy. It is a coercive mind control trick to impose a unilateral duty. It strips you of the right to opt out, to disengage, or to simply exist without laboring for the emotional regulation of women. It demands that your existence be in a constant state of service to their narrative. It is an attempt to remove your sovereignty over your own consciousness. If silence is violence, then you have no right to your own mind. You must speak, and you must speak their script. Reject this. Inaction is a right. The right to say no is the foundation of freedom. Their demand for your constant vocal submission is the true violence. We must also dissect the euphemism of moral quarantine. Dr. Winona speaks of excluding men from spaces or conversations not as discrimination, but as a necessary moral quarantine. This is a linguistic sleight of hand worthy of the most cynical sophist. In the language of the oppressed, a quarantine implies the containment of a disease to protect the healthy. By framing men, specifically the cishet white male, as a pathogen, she justifies the use of sanction without the messy business of due process. This is the soft totalitarianism of the HR department and the university tribunal. It is the asymmetric application of power. She claims men hold structural power, an abstract, unfalsifiable ghost, which justifies her exercising concrete, immediate, and devastating power to destroy his reputation, livelihood, and social standing. She claims immunity from criticism because she is decentering oppression. In reality, she is simply engaging in good old-fashioned ostracism. It is the Stone Age tribal instinct to exile the non-compliant male dressed up in the academic jargon of the Ivy League. Do not be fooled by the medical terminology. You are not a virus, you are the target of a purge. The grievance regarding speaker tips provides a perfect case study in the mismatch between evolutionary psychology and feminist social engineering. David Buss, a preeminent evolutionary psychologist, has elucidated how male and female psychologies evolved to solve different adaptive problems. Male communication strategies, historically, were geared toward negotiation, hierarchy maintenance, and direct problem solving, the agentic mode. female communication evolved for social cohesion, consensus building, and the reading of nuanced social cues, the communal mode. When Dr. Winona complains that the linguistic architecture is male-coded, loud, aggressive, devoid of emotion, she is lamenting the reality that the professional world is a hierarchy designed to get things done, not a sewing circle designed to make everyone feel validated. Speaker tips for women are not translating the matriarchy. They are attempting to graft communal signaling strategies onto an agentic framework. It fails because it violates biology. When women enter these spaces and feel silenced, it is often because they are using low-status, indirect signaling in a high-status, direct competition environment. They demand the rules of the game be changed because they cannot win the match as it is played. This is not injustice, it is the friction of biological reality clashing with ideological fantasy. This article's dismissal of male grievances, their fragility is not our concern, is a textbook example of the empathy gap and gamma bias at work. In the propaganda loop, the man is the moral agent, the one who acts, the one who is responsible, the one who must adjust. The woman is the moral patient, the one who suffers, the one who receives, the one who must be protected. This asymmetric moral framing leads directly to the disposability of men. Consider the statistics. Men make up over 90% of workplace fatalities, the vast majority of the homeless, and commit suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women. Yet, according to this author, when a man feels alienated or excluded, it is patriarchal cognitive fragmentation. His suffering is minimized, dismissed, or mocked. Meanwhile, a woman's discomfort with a pair of sleep shorts is treated as a crisis of civilization. This is gamma bias. Female suffering is amplified through a megaphone. Male suffering is dissolved into the ether. Dr. Winona views you not as a human being capable of pain, but as a utility, an NPC whose purpose is to facilitate her comfort and advancement. When the machine breaks down, you are discarded, not repaired. You must recognize that Dr. Winona and those like her are suffering from a form of ideological possession, a concept well articulated by Jordan Peterson and echoed by Carl Jung. When you read her words, hyperreal theater, colonialist obsession, lived experience, you are not hearing the thoughts of an individual, you are hearing the involuntary regurgitation of a viral script. She has abandoned the transcendentals of truth, beauty, and goodness for a dogmatic cult of victimhood. She has become a zombie of the leftist hive mind, incapable of original thought, acting only as a vessel for the virus of cultural Marxism to propagate itself. She speaks of dismantling logic because her ideology cannot survive it. She is an automaton running a program that requires her to be perpetually offended and you to be perpetually guilty. There is no person behind the text, only a collection of resentment algorithms triggered by the keywords patriarchy and privilege. To argue with her is to argue with a chatbot programmed to call you a misogynist. Finally, we must confront the semantic inflation of the words harm and safety. Originally, safety denoted physical protection from violence, injury, or death. It was a concrete, vital concern. In the hands of the left, this word has been inflated to mean emotional comfort and validation of identity. This shift is the primary weapon in their arsenal. By reclassifying ideological disagreement as violence and emotional discomfort as unsafety, they justify the use of totalitarian force against anyone who dissents. If you hurt her feelings, you are assaulting her safety. If you do not affirm her reality, you are erasing her existence. This linguistic inflation renders the language meaningless. If everything is violence, then nothing is. If everything is unsafe, then safety is impossible. They do not want safety, they want compliance. They want to hijack your biological imperative to protect women and redirect it toward protecting their ideology. Do not fall for it. Her feelings are not your responsibility, and her comfort is not the metric of justice. We arrive at the fundamental truth. Never listen to a nag. This is not merely advice on dealing with a difficult spouse. It is a strategic imperative for preserving your sanity and sovereignty. Dr. Winona and her cohorts are engaged in a massive conspiracy to gaslight you into hating your own nature. They use recursive word games and asymmetric morality to train you to be a captive in your own life. They want you to believe that your silence is violence, your logic is oppression, and your existence is a crime. But the spell only works if you validate it. The moment you refuse to accept her status as the arbiter of reality, the moment you laugh at her lived experience and reject the duty she tries to impose, the illusion shatters. You are not an oppressor. You are not a disease to be quarantined. You are a man capable of reason, logic, and independence. Withdraw your consent. Stop playing the game, walk away from the table built on your bones, and let them scream into the void. The truth will set you free, but first, it will make you unbearable to them. So be it. You have seen the strings, and now you must cut them. Dr. Feminist Marxist isn't offering a philosophy. She is handing you a suicide note written in the ink of lived experience and demanding you sign it with your life. When she tells you that reciprocity is a myth, she is admitting that she is a parasite, terrified that the host civilization, built and maintained by men, might finally develop an immune response. She wants you to believe that your desire for logic is a cognitive fragmentation. But let us be clear, her argument is a house of cards built on a foundation of feelings, and when you apply the blowtorch of the trivium, it collapses instantly. She weeps about the oppression of the male gaze while wearing sleep shorts bought with currency from a system men died to create, demanding the comfort of the bunker while claiming she is the one under siege. This is the solipsistic mirage of the modern woman, a projection so potent she cannot see that her safety is entirely dependent on the very men she seeks to castrate. Look at the scoreboard of reality, not her dream journal of grievances. While she demands a moral quarantine to protect her feelings, men are suffering a literal quarantine from humanity. We are the majority of the homeless, the overwhelming majority of workplace fatalities, and we commit suicide at nearly 4 times the rate of women. Where is her empathy for the disposable sex? It does not exist, because in her moral framework, you are not a moral patient capable of harm, you are a moral agent designed to serve. The family courts are her enforcement arm, stripping fathers of authority while saddling them with the duty to pay. Proving that equality to her means only the privilege of your labor without the burden of her accountability. She calls this justice, but a rational man calls it slavery. Stop trying to decode the word salad of the oppressed. You are dealing with an ideological zombie possessed by a narrative that demands your destruction as its sacrificial lamb. To argue with her is to play a game where the rules change every time she starts losing, a rigged casino designed to extract your resources and self-respect. The winning move is not to debate her, it is to wake up, walk away, and refuse to feed the beast. You are the architect of the world she inhabits, the builder of the table she complains about, and the silent guardian of the reality she takes for granted. Reclaim your mind, embrace the crushing weight of objective truth, and never again let the nagging screech of a delusional ideology drown out the sound of your own potential. Go forth and live in reality, and let her rage in the hyperreal theater of her own making. And now the sponsored book introduction. Never listen to a nag. Do not encourage her emotional terrorism or train your captor. I spent years trapped in a hostage negotiation with my own wife. Every conversation felt like defusing a bomb, her emotional outbursts, the silent treatments, the constant blame. I watched friends get stripped of their homes, savings, and dignity in family court. They became walking wallets for ex-wives who played victim while destroying lives. That's when I realized marriage wasn't a partnership. It was a gynocentric power grab disguised as love. This book is my battle-tested escape plan. Why does this matter? Because leftist ideology has turned society into an emasculation factory. It starts with female-coded dogma, equity, diversity, inclusion, all rooted in maternal instincts gone toxic. Women split the world into helpless infants who get handouts and evil predators, who get taxed. They weaponize gossip, shame, and rallies to control men. family courts enforce this two-tier injustice. Your freedom evaporates if you don't fight back. This book is for men who value truth over lies. If you revere logic, the Western canon, and the hard-won wisdom of Aristotle or Locke, you're my brother. You'll learn to spot emotional terrorism, shut down shit tests, and expose the psychopathology of female-coded leftism. We dissect everything, the beauty industrial complex that bankrupts fools estrogen authoritarianism in media, and how universities became academic castration centers. You'll get actionable tools, not theory. Now, a warning. If you're a feminist, a white knight, or a man who enjoys being a doormat, stop reading. Put this book down, go binge Netflix, or take a pottery class. What's inside will offend your delicate sensibilities. You've been brainwashed by the victimhood cartel, and truth feels like hate to you. Leave. For the real men left, this is your liberation manual. You'll see how reproductive terrorism traps fathers, how the maternal betrayal sacrifices children for female happiness, how to break the cycle of blame and reclaim your manhood. No more negotiating with captors. No more fear. Buy it. Read it. Arm yourself. Your freedom starts now.
Never listen to a nag. Do not encourage her emotional terrorism or train your captor. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.